All right, so now I want to talk about how you can adjust the availability of an estimator in the CRM. And there's actually two places you could do it, but for simplicity, I suggest only doing it in one place. Just makes things nice and simple, less room for error. So let me show you what I mean by that. The two places you can adjust the availability is in the calendar itself or under the user's profile. So in the user's profile, there'll be an availability, and I like to just say select all. And it goes from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. So it's always available. There's never a time that this user is not available. So if something's weird and you're like, why isn't it showing up as available? I would double check that you have this as select all. Maybe you left off a Saturday or something and that's why it's not showing up. But this is one place where you could adjust availability. Now, the other place is on the calendar settings here under availability. So I'm going to go to edit this calendar and availability. And this is where you're going to basically put in when you're going to do your estimates. So first thing, let's go down to the bottom here. And what works best for us is we schedule our estimates in 2-hour blocks. And we don't have any time in between for driving or anything. It's just, hey, every estimate's 2 hours and that's enough for us to do the estimate and drive to the next estimate that's set. So let me show you what that looks like. It would look something like this, to where it's like, hey, here's when our free open spots are. And you'll see all of these are marked as free. So the way you would set that up here is our meeting interval is 2 hours. Our meeting duration is 2 hours. And I don't have any pre-buffer time or post-buffer time. It's just back-to-back 2-hour meetings in 2-hour intervals. Now this minimum scheduling notice basically is saying if the estimate is within 4 hours, so if my office administrator were to go to set up an estimate for 12 p.m., they'll only see that as an available spot from before 8 p.m. But if it's like, 10, since 12 is only 2 hours away, because it says a minimum of 4, they wouldn't see it as available. I'll show you later how they could still set it if they really wanted to, but this is also handy for if you're sending the client a link, you'd want to adjust this, right? So like if you want to make sure your next day doesn't change, so if you're going to go out and do estimates, you don't want anything to change, you don't want another estimate to pop up at the end of your day, you could put something like 24 or 12 hours here. So the next 12 hours is not going to change. For the date range, you can put days, weeks, or months of how long you want them to be able to view the calendar. And what that means is if you were to put, say, 7 days and they were to look at a booking link like this, the available days would only go 7 days out. So if today's the 10th, it goes 7 days out, and then everything after that, you wouldn't see or be able to book it. Maximum bookings per slot. For estimates, you'd want to keep at 1. An example of a time when this wouldn't be 1 is if you were doing online interviews for painters and you wanted 2 or 3 painters to be able to book the same time spot and you're just going to interview them at the same time. That's when you would change this, allowing more than one contact to book the same time spot. But obviously with estimates, you only want one contact to book for each time slot. So I want to show you if we were trying to set this up right here, these open spots, and we want this to happen every week, how we would set that up here. So we'll talk about this area in a second, but for weekly available hours, I'm just going to turn everything off and start from scratch. So we've got Monday, I've got a 12 to 6 open. So I'm going to say Monday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. is open. And since it knows 2-hour meeting duration and 2-hour intervals, it's going to look like this. Okay, now it gets a little tricky here. We've got 8 to 2 and then an hour lunch break. Let's put on my personal calendar right there, and then I'm going to do another 2 estimates. If you just put 8 to 7, it would actually look like this, and that hour lunch break wouldn't be in there. So let me show you how you'd set that up. You would do 8 to 2, so I'm going to go Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then I'm going to add another section that goes from 3 to 7. So I'm going to say 3 to 7. Now what's really cool is, let's say that, hey, I actually wanted to do this same kind of thing on Thursday this week or any other day. You can press this copy button and it'll ask you what day do you want to copy that to. So I'll say Thursday, apply, and it'll just duplicate that on Thursday to save time and make things easier. But for now, I'm just going to delete those so we can make it match this calendar exactly. And let's go ahead and press save. And what this is right here is weekly. So it's just going to repeat. Every week is going to look like this. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the availability on this calendar. and see if it matches this right here. So you want to make sure that this is active, otherwise you're not going to be able to view it. You can do that right here, but I'm going to press share, copy this link, put it in a new tab, and you can see Monday and Wednesdays are green like this, highlighting that those days I have available times. And just like the Monday and Wednesday here, Monday I've got 3 slots, Wednesday I've got 5, but one starts at 12 and then the next one starts at 3. So let's check that. An 8, 10, 12, and then instead of a 2, it starts at 3 and another one at 5, just like on here. Same thing here. So you can see how that correlates over, and if you wanted a schedule like this, that's how you would create it. Or another view would be here, which is more likely when you're talking to someone on the phone about to set an estimate. You'd come over to appointments, press add, make sure you're on the calendar you're wanting to add the appointment to, and then you'll notice when you click here, the bold numbers are days that are available. So again, Mondays and Wednesdays. I changed my calendar view here to start on Monday. That's why it looks a little different, but it's the same as here, the 10th and the 12th. We've got the 10th and the 12th. The 10th, if I click there, I'll see the available spots, there's 3, and if I switch over to the 12th, I'll see the available spots are 8, 10, 12, and then a 3 and a 5. And I can select one, book the appointment, and set up whatever contact I'm on for that appointment. Now, let's say that this makes sense for you weekly. However, you want to make an exception for 1 week and add something or change something. Let's say not this week, which is right here, but the next week on the 11th, I want to add in an extra estimate that day that normally I wouldn't do. So that's when you want to adjust specific days and hours, you do it over here. So I would say, okay, on the 11th, I'm going to do an estimate from 10 to 12 p.m. Submit. And now that day will be different. You can also override days. So let's say this next Wednesday, instead of doing my typical Wednesday, I'm going to do something different. You would come here and you would add something different on this Wednesday, and it'll override that Wednesday. So that's why this is just the best place to change and make your schedule. I would have like your weekly routine, and then for any time you're going to change your weekly routine, I would put it in here. There is another way to quickly just remove estimate spots from your weekly routine, and that would just be in your calendar itself. Because remember, it's checking these calendars, the main one where the estimates are going, as well as these other 2 that I added for any conflict. So if I were to say on this personal stuff calendar right here, if I were to say like doctor appointment, as long as this is marked as busy and not free, and I press save here, this is going to be a conflict. So the 12 o'clock spot won't be available because it's a 2-hour estimate, and because the doctor appointment starts at 1:30, I won't have a full 2 hours. Furthermore, the 2 o'clock spot won't be available because we wouldn't be able to be there by 2 because we're busy till 2:30. If I were to put it here, then it would just be the 2 o'clock that would no longer be available. Another thing you can do is, let's say that you wanted to block off an entire day. I could come to this Wednesday here. I'm going to go more options, change this over to personal, and then I'm going to come up here and click all day event and just say, vacation or whatever, press save. And now that this all day event is marked as busy on this day, the 12th, nothing will show up now as available. So the way that I think about it is, if I'm going to change my estimate schedule or add in more estimates, do it here. If it's a change to your weekly routine, right here. If it's just a 1 week thing or a one-off thing, do it here. And if I want to remove estimates that I would normally do, I would do it on the calendar here. Now I do want to mention something important. When you create these spots like this, you won't actually see those spots on your physical calendar, like here or here. And what I mean by that is, like, let's go out a couple weeks, on the week of the 16th through the 22nd, there's nothing in my calendar here. There's nothing here. However, if I were to look at the availability of the calendar, like on here, I can see from the 16th to the 22nd and even the next week, there are available spots because it's repeating each week. I put these in here just so we could get a visual representation and I could explain it better to show you how I would create a schedule like this in the availability here. So if you want to actually see the spots, which can be helpful for working in teams, you would have to actually add the spots in as a free spot like we did here, marking it as free and just saying like this is an open estimate. If you want to be able to visually see where the spots are, which my company, we actually do that. And it's mainly because, we have a team, multiple office and estimators. And then that way it's a little easier when you're on the phone and you're making a call to visually just quickly see everything. They don't have to click on a day and then see which spots are open. Furthermore, it helps to be able to see the estimates that are around, because when you're taking drive time into account, I've got an estimate set here that's on the far east side of town. This one's on the far west side of town, and I'm trying to set another one up that's maybe in the middle. It makes sense to put it here so that way they can kind of drive across town or something like that. It can be very helpful to visually see it all as one big picture, but it really just depends on your situation, how your preferences are. But that's how we do it. Is our estimators are responsible for putting in their open spots, both in the Google Calendar as well as making sure that it's entered here properly, which is actually pretty easy because a lot of times they just have the same schedule each week. But it's mainly for when they are going to have a 3-day weekend or got a doctor's appointment or a birthday party or some reason where it's going to be different, they'll change it. And in reality, what's really nice is when they're subtracting estimates, because say there is a doctor's appointment or something, they can easily just come in here. They could put it on any of the calendars that are checking for conflicts, but they could even just put it on this main calendar here and just switch this to busy and say, doctor appointment. But that way, the office administrator, whether they're looking at it here or here, they see, oh, that's a doctor's appointment. And normally that's open, but that's why it's not open now. And they don't have to double check and call or text the estimator and be like, hey, was this a mistake, or why isn't that spot there? We also like to color coordinate the estimates. So if you're looking at it here, we can see, oh, the red is open, the green is filled. It just makes it really easy to quickly see open spots, when they are, what's around them. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to hit on is when you're speaking with a lead and you're going to set them up with an estimate, sometimes you will actually schedule them on a time that doesn't work here. Maybe the last estimate of the day is at 5, but they're not going to be home till 5:30. Estimator approves it or whatever, and you actually want to set it for 5:30 rather than 5, or you're going to make a change. But rather than going in and changing the availability, what you can do is you can always press this custom right here, and then you can set it for whenever you want. So, this is saying 4:10 to 6:10. It knows it's still a 2-hour block, but I could change this to 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Just press save, or you can see if I put a 6 here, it'll immediately go 6 to 8. So that gives you the flexibility to set it whenever you want, which is very helpful for certain situations. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, this is an interior and an exterior estimate, so I actually want to take up 2 spots. So you could just actually change the time here to 10, so now it's going from 6 to 10. Or sometimes you realize man, they're driving all the way across town, I want to give them a half-hour buffer of driving, so you could set it for 6:30 instead of the typical 6. Stuff like that comes up and happens a lot. You've got that custom option here, so you can make whatever you need to work.